A nightmare is very vivid. And I've always taken great care to be accurate in all detail, no matter how fantastic the situation might be.
Alfred Hitchcock's follow-up to Psycho, The Birds, released in 1963 to mixed reviews. There may be scenes that have created phobias for its viewers when seeing a flock of birds in real life. Now, The Birds was first of its kind, a subgenre of horror not often talked about amongst other subgenres like slasher, paranormal, or monster movies today. Natural horror centers around man versus beast, or in this case, man versus bird, reminding us that while humans may be at the top of the food chain, we are not to underestimate what animals can do when provoked. Since then, there have been around 100 films made in this subgenre, and with the exception of Jaws, none truly making you afraid to go outside or reconsider petting certain dogs. The real terror of The Birds didn't occur on screen, but more behind the scenes, as Hitchcock not only had a vision for his film, but also one for molding Tippi Hedren into the perfect actress, a twisted obsession of abuse that ruined the actress's career. Here are 5 things you may not,
or probably,
know about the making of The Birds.
Number 5. In 1952, author Daphne du Maurier published a collection of short stories titled The Apple Tree. One of the short stories was titled The Birds. The story was set shortly after World War II, where a disabled war veteran, Nat Hawken, became a farmhand in Cornish, England. On a cold day in December, while tilling the fields, Hawken noticed flocks of birds behaving aggressively, which was usually a sign of winter weather coming. However, unlike previous years, the birds attack him. Fearing the worst, he attempts to warn locals, but they don't believe him.
Bird anywhere in sight. Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap, yet your heavenly Father feeds them.
And it isn't long until birds begin to gather in masses throughout the country, prompting fear to begin to spread over their ominous presence. When the birds begin to attack, not only do they attack people, but they end up taking over the skies as well, taking down airplanes by crashing into their propellers. The story's subcontext represented the anxieties felt during World War II and Germany's increasing presence throughout Europe. Hitchcock, having been familiar with the author's works, would loosely adapt his film around the story, tossing out the majority of the story in favor of screenwriter Evan Hunter's recommendation of a screwball comedy that turns into terror, with the lead characters modeled after Cary Grant and Grace Kelly. Number 4.
While the inspiration for The Birds came from a story, a real-life event like this would occur while Hitchcock was prepping for the film. On August 18, 1961, in Capitola in California, just off of Monterey Bay, the city was attacked by a flock of Sooty shearwaters. Sooty shearwaters are a chocolate-covered bird that are about 16 to 20 inches long with a wingspan that can reach up to 43 inches. During the time of this attack, they were migrating along the California coast. The birds had consumed sardines that were contaminated with a toxic algae, domoic acid. The algae caused the birds to become sick and disoriented. They began regurgitating fish blood as they dive-bombed people, cars, buildings, and most often killing themselves as they littered the streets with their bodies. Fortunately, no one died from the attacks, but 8 people were bitten or pecked. After learning of the attack, Hitchcock called the local newspaper and requested a copy of the newspaper covering the story to use as research for his film. The event itself made it into the film and was referenced after Melanie Daniels entering the diner looking to escape the birds and warn the locals of their behavior.
Say, something like this happened in Santa Cruz last year. The town was just covered with seagulls.
Please finish your drink.
That's right, sir. I recall it. A large flock of seagulls got lost in the fog and headed into the town where all the lights were.
And they made some mess, too, smashing into buildings and everything. And they always make a mess.
Number 3. Lead actress Melanie Daniels was portrayed by Tippi Hedren, who was making her film debut in a credited role. Prior to this, Hedren had moved to New York when she was 20 to become a model. She achieved moderate success while there, having appeared on several magazine covers and in multiple commercials. She eventually moved back to LA with her daughter after a short marriage and expected that she would be able to continue her career there. She was discovered by Hitchcock not by chance meeting or an audition, but through one of her commercials which would air during the Today Show. Keeping his name a secret, he had an agent reach out to her on Friday the 13th in October 1961. With Hedren having limited acting experience, to ensure that she was what he had envisioned, Hitchcock spent the equivalent of $245,000 screen testing Hedren over 2 days. The screen test consisted of her reenacting roles from previous films with actor Martin Balsam, who portrayed Detective Arbogast in Psycho.
Tell me, Mr. Balsam, what exactly do you have in mind?
Hitchcock described Hedren's casting as, "I was not primarily concerned with how she looked in person. Most important was her appearance on the screen, and I liked that immediately. She has a touch of that high-style, ladylike quality which was once well represented in films by actresses like Irene Dunne, Grace Kelly, Claudette Colbert, and others, but which is now quite rare." Hitchcock would go on to become Hedren's drama coach and signed her to a 7-year contract. Number 2.
Hitchcock signed Hedren to a 7-year contract so that she would remain exclusive to him. He was obsessed with Hedren and would isolate her from the rest of the cast during filming, and would become visually upset when she talked with other cast and crew. In an attempt to isolate her even further, he would exude his control over her, placing her on a rigorous schedule, allowing her one afternoon off a week. This way, he could easily keep tabs on her. Throughout filming, Hitchcock would whisper obscenities in her ear, frequently drive past her home when they were not on set, and made several advances at her in the back of his limousine. Having never been successful and unable to deal with rejection, Hitchcock would have her followed home after they wrapped filming to see if she was seeing other men. Hitchcock's failed advances began to transform into acts of vengeance, where he used his power in Hollywood to block her from being nominated for Best Actress for The Birds. Now, despite being unsuccessful in winning her over, he would cast her as the lead in his next film, Marnie. His obsessions grew during filming even further, and he would have a secret door installed between his office and her dressing room. Hitchcock even attempted to assault her in his office, but Hedren was able to fight him off. Hitchcock responded,
And he said, "Well, you can't. You have your little girl to support. Your parents are getting older." And I said, "None of them would want me to be in a situation where I'm not happy."
She ended their partnership after Marnie was filmed. Hitchcock delivered on his promise, blocking her from being cast in several films, thus ending her promising career.
Number 1. Hitchcock's twisted obsession can be seen hinted at in various scenes in The Birds. The worst, however, came during the scene where Melanie was attacked in the bedroom by the birds. Originally, Hedren had been informed that the scene would be filmed with mechanical birds, but on the day of the shoot, the assistant director told her that the mechanical birds didn't work, so they had to switch to real birds.
They told me, Hitch always told me for the entire filming that we were going to use mechanical birds for that scene. I said, fine, don't have anything to worry about. That morning, it was on a Monday morning that we were going to start the scene, and Jim Brown, the assistant director, came into my dressing room on the set. And we'd known each other for a long time. And he couldn't look at me. He looked at the floor, he looked at the walls, he looked at the ceiling. And I said, what's the matter with you? And he said, we can't use the mechanical birds, they don't work. And out the door he went. And I just blanched white because I had seen the bird trainers with their leather gauntlets up to their shoulders and scratches that they had from the birds. And I walked out onto the set, and there was never an intention of using mechanical birds.
Over the course of 5 days, Hedren had ravens and seagulls either tied down to her or thrown at her. The terror you see on the screen is real. On the 5th day, after one of the birds nearly clawed her eye out, she had enough. Frustrated with the situation, Hedren removed the birds that were tied to her and ended the scene. She broke down on set and was left alone crying after everyone had cleaned up. Hedren had been given the weekend off following the ordeal. The following Monday, she was found unconscious after returning to set to film her final scenes. She was placed under doctor's care for exhaustion, and filming was placed on hold until she was able to come back. Many believe that Hitchcock never intended to use mechanical birds during the scene, and the use of real birds by him was a form of punishment for Hedren for rejecting his advances.
I never knew this before doing the research for this, and I was like, oh my God.
I had heard some things, but I never really, dove deep into it and did any research on it. I knew that he had single-handedly ended Tippi Hedren's career, but like I said, I never really did like a deep dive into it.
Now, for those of you who may not know, Tippi Hedren is almost like a legacy person in Hollywood now, because her daughter is Melanie Griffith, her granddaughter is Dakota Johnson.
Yes.
And she's basically moved on and kind of forgiven him for what had happened. And then, because when Hitchcock died, she even went to his funeral to pay her respects.
She's a better person than I am, because I think I may have gone to his funeral and spit on his grave.
Yeah. Well, she was an activist, so despite all of this turmoil that she was going through back then, she always did things, she did good causes. Mm-hmm. She was an animal activist, so she took all of this negativity that was
he was
thrown
an animal,
at her.
So she felt bad for him.
I guess, yeah. She took all of this negativity that was in her life and she spun it for positives. And it's such a shame, too, because this being her first movie role, she definitely was Best Actress worthy.
Oh, absolutely.
Birds has always been my favorite, absolute best. I saw it as a kid, and there are scenes in there that terrify me. Like the whole scene outside of the schoolhouse with the birds just gathering on the play sets and stuff like that. That is just sheer terror.
I mean, I only have the two comparisons, right? Because I'm not a huge Hitchcock fan. I've watched Psycho, I've watched The Birds. I watched Psycho long before I watched The Birds because you introduced me to that. I like The Birds a whole lot better. The more that I watch Psycho, the more I'm like, the actual Psycho part of this movie is really short. And I'm like, why is everyone like, oh my God, Janet Leigh was amazing. What did she do?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It was Anthony Perkins all the way in that one.
Absolutely, it was Anthony Perkins. He's the one who stole the show. As far as Janet Leigh, listen, I'm sorry. I know a lot of people really love her. She's Jamie Lee Curtis's mom, but she wasn't the one. She wasn't the star. It was Anthony Perkins.
Now, what surprises me the most is Tippi Hedren, knockout. I think you would admit it too.
Oh, yeah.
She is stunning.
Absolutely.
She does not show up on any of the most beautiful women of all time in Hollywood list ever. Like, I went through to see if she placed anywhere, and she doesn't. There are actresses that are on there that are definitely not better looking than her. Or even just thinking about all the animal activist stuff that she's done too, that makes her a beautiful person in another way.
Yeah.
She doesn't make any of those lists.
Well, it's because she was blacklisted, right? I mean, she was completely blacklisted by this one person. And so when they were looking through like names, they had to pick somebody else. And unfortunately, they probably picked people that were not the most attractive. And the thing is, Tippi Hedren was beautiful without the makeup.
Yeah.
Like, she was very natural. And of course, in her prime, Melanie Griffith was the same way. She could just be natural. And Dakota Johnson's like that too. Listen, we all saw her in 50 Shades of Grey. She didn't have to wear makeup to be cute. It's a family thing.
And you figure for that time that the film came out, portraying such a strong female character
Yes.
too, definitely, breaking a lot of molds then. So
Yeah.
if
definitely.
you watch the movie, or if you haven't seen the movie, you're going to watch it based off of what we're talking about, or you're just like, you know what, this guy's a scum, I'm not going to do it. Keep in mind, she forgave him, she's moved on, so watch the movie for her.
Yeah.
Because her performance is just phenomenal. And, it's kind of funny, right? Screwball comedy. There's a lot of story in the beginning with little pieces here and there about birds, possibly attacking, but she just keeps you interested in the entire movie.
And if you haven't seen this movie and you're, one of the ones that are like a fan of Psycho, where they both kind of tell the story in the beginning, this one has a better story, I think. It's got a lot of that slapstick comedy, and they're kind of, bouncing off of each other with the comedy, and they're mean to each other because they don't really like each other, the two main characters. I like the storyline better in this than I do in Psycho.
Now, did we miss anything on our list? Let us know by dropping it in the comments.
Oh, I'd hate to see there was more.
Yeah, there is more.
Oh, that's... Yeah, that makes me sad. And
Yeah.
angry.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, don't forget, it is the quest for 5,000 subscribers, and we're doing a couple different things along the way here. So first, for every video that gets a like and a comment, when we hit 25, we're going to give out some stuff. 50, we're going to give out some stuff. 75, we're going to give out some stuff. And then at 100, we're going to give out a full-size one-sheet movie theater poster. We have a bunch of them we went through. There's a lot of cool ones in there. Don't Breathe 2, Suicide Squad, the new one, not the original one with the fake Joker. Now, you can help us get to 5,000 subscribers by...
Liking, commenting, and sharing.
Yes, please do that. When we hit 4,000 subscribers, we will be giving out a Scream popcorn bucket that sold out within a day and a half at Cinemark, and then they re-released it online. So this is the first issue, still in the bag, all yours.
And it's free.
Exactly, and it's free. When we hit 5,000 subscribers, you will get a box of Strawberries and Scream cereal signed by
Matthew Lillard, David Arquette, and possibly Rose McGowan.
Yes. By the time you see this, we will have that signature. So check out one of our reviews to find out if it is on there. And we are waiting for another prize to come that either we'll give it out at 3,000 or we'll give it out at 4,500. And that is second edition release of the Scream movie theater cups, Bloody Ghostface, and then regular Ghostface.
Yeah, it's a 2-pack. So pretty cool.
Yes, you'll get both.
Yes.
Anyway, until the next.
See ya.